Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz pianist, composer, and educator Jason Yeager. We caught up with this Boston native about his latest 2019 CD, New Songs of Resistance, his fifth album as a leader doing Latin American folk songs with original compositions inspired by that tradition and our contemporary cultural and political landscape. He always stays true to the traditions of jazz, blues, 20th century classical music, and Latin American folk rhythms, and he has graced many halls and venues like Carnegie Hall, the Blue Note, Birdland, and Smalls, and so many others. So please get to know him and dig this interview, my friends.
Tell you what, every single time, those sirens in New York always sound different than Kansas City.
Ha ha ha. I can imagine it. I apologize. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, no, you know what? This interview is just an extension of jazz. Life happens, man, and it's just going to be texture. So I'm down for sure.
Okay.
Well, hey, Jason. Good. Yeah, cool. Yeah, hey, thanks for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me on.
And I guess it's in an ironic way that siren behind this is probably apropos, because I want to talk to you about your latest CD, Songs of Resistance. And sure. I want to know from you, what was kind of the vision for this project?
Sure. Well, it began as sort of a deep dive into a musical tradition from South America called Nueva Canción, which means new song. And the new song movement was a folk music revival of sorts in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, principally in Chile and in Argentina, that became a symbol for resistance to autocratic regimes. And given that we are living in a time where we see autocratic regimes proliferating at home and abroad, I was very curious about the historical importance of this musical movement that helped galvanize millions and millions of people in countries to our south. And so when I was learning this repertoire and rearranging pieces, I started to then compose contemporary songs and pieces that would address some of the issues I'm concerned with in our contemporary social lives. And so that's why it's called New Songs of Resistance. New Songs comes from Nueva Canción, which is Spanish for new song, and then the idea of resistance belongs both in that historical tradition and in the new music that I'm trying to share and perform today.
So what do you want the listener to take from this project? What do you want them to feel?
Sure. I want them to feel that one's own voice is important, that our common values and our care for one another is important, and I want them to hear, first of all, beautiful music, and second of all, the fact that I think prior to studying the Nueva Canción music from Latin America, I had sort of this idea that protest music was loud and angry. And in fact, protest music is as variegated and as nuanced and subtle as love songs, as angry songs, as sad songs, as laments, as joyous songs. So on this record, you will hear a whole spectrum of emotions, from celebration to lament to sort of a challenge, to a fighting spirit, to a conciliatory spirit. I think that putting one's opinions and views into an artistic format makes those opinions and views perhaps more relatable and more human. And my hope is that we can come together through not only music but other art forms to recognize the common humanity that we share as we try to forge a better world, because there's no question that the world is teetering on the brink of a lot of fragmentation and division and crisis. So, where are you from originally? Are you from New York? I'm actually from the Boston area.
Okay, all right. Well, talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how jazz became your life.
Totally. Well, I was sent a toy keyboard by my uncle when I was about 4 years old, and I started picking out little melodies by ear and also creating my own songs. And eventually got to piano lessons and really enjoyed that, but more than the lessons or the practicing, what I enjoyed was improvising. And so at a certain point, my mom actually was able to track down a piano teacher in the Boston area named Dan Lotion, who was a jazz piano teacher. And I didn't really know anything about jazz. I knew something about the blues, but not really. But suddenly through this piano teacher, Dan Lotion, I discovered this whole world of improvisation, which I was already very much into and enjoying, but I didn't know that there was this whole art form, this whole musical art form that revolved around self-expression and improvisation. This opened up a whole world for me. And so through my teenage years, I got involved playing in jazz groups, both inside and outside of school. And that's really what it was. I would say I started listening to Miles Davis and John Coltrane and Thelonious Monk intensively, in my early teen years, maybe 13, 14 years old. And that was really a revelation for me.
What about your first live jazz show you ever saw that blew your doors down?
Oh, wow, that's a really good question. I don't remember the very first, but two that I remember that were very impactful when I was about 14, 15 years old. They were both at the Berkeley Performance Center in Boston. One was to hear Chick Corea's trio, and the other was to hear Michel Camilo's trio. And incidentally, both of these artists are virtuosic pianists and super creative, and also have strong connections to Latin music. And I don't know if that planted any seeds long term, but I have to think that those experiences were influential. I mean, those concerts resonate with me today. I viscerally remember the feeling sitting there and the sounds I heard and the awe that I was in upon hearing those groups. And I think those weren't the very first, but those are two of the first, within the first couple of years that I was listening to the music that really grabbed my attention.
So along with being a recording artist and a performer, you're also a teacher. What were some good teachers in your life that taught you things that help you now as a teacher?
Absolutely. Well, aside from Dan Lotion, who I mentioned, Bob Sinatrope, the jazz director at my high school, was really impactful in terms of allowing me to see music as a gift and performance as an opportunity to share something with people, not just a grand self-aggrandizement or an ego trip, but something to actually give, a gift to give and enjoy. He also taught me a lot about rhythm and groove. He's a bass player, and that's something that I try to pass on to my students, regardless of the kind of music that they're into. Many of them are into jazz, but others are into other kinds of music, and rhythm is at the heart of any musical style or tradition. So I have various exercises that I like to work on myself and also share with my students, and many of those originated with my high school band teacher, Bob Sinatrope. And then later on in college, I had the good fortune to study with two of my favorite pianists in the world, Fred Hirsch and Danilo Perez. And they both imparted a lot of wisdom from their decades playing on the scene and playing with the likes of Wayne Shorter and Joe Henderson and Freddie Hubbard and so on, things that really opened up my mind to the art of solo piano playing, which plays a role on my new record, the 3 solo piano tracks, the art of listening and accompanying other musicians in the band with sensitivity and energy. And that's something also that I use all the time in my playing and also in my teaching. I try to, especially as a piano teacher, the pianist's most important job in most situations is to make the whole band sound good and to make the singer or the lead soloist sound good. So those are some of the lessons from some of my, most impactful teachers that I try to pass along to my students.
So, what do you like best about being a musician?
That's a great question. I think the thing I like best about it is the opportunity to fully engage and learn about music every day. I'm endlessly curious about music. You might even call it a pathology. I'm always I'm obsessed, and I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to get better, and I'm trying to grow as a musician and an artist. And I think the best part of being a musician is that I get to do this almost all the time, and engage with music in a very deep way. I've also met some of my best friends, and even my fiance I met through music. So people very dear to me in my life I wouldn't have otherwise encountered without music being at the heart of what it is.
So why do you love jazz?
Why do I love jazz?
Yeah.
What I love about it is I think it is very much a tradition. First of all, I see jazz as an African-American tradition that has grown to include influences from all around the world. And because it is both firmly rooted in a cultural tradition, but also open to from Latin America, from Europe, from Asia, of course, having its origins in Africa, jazz music is a way to bring different artists and different people from different backgrounds together. And I think I also love the fact that it is very much like having a conversation with a group of friends. It is democratic. People's voices are heard in the best of cases, and it is spontaneous. There may be a loose plan. Yeah, let's go to the carnival. Let's go hang out with a bunch of friends. But from there, the process is very open. There's a free exchange of ideas. There's self-expression, but there's also a commitment to the success of the group. So that freedom of expression of the individual and also that empathy and caring for the group, that all exists in jazz music, and I feel that when I'm playing with my fellow musicians. So that's what I really love about the music. And it sounds great, and it feels good, and it swings and all that good stuff.
Sure. So let's say a jazz morning pulls up in front of your house tomorrow, and you can go anywhere and anywhere in time to see any jazz musician. Who are you going to go see?
I'm going to travel to New Orleans pre-1923 and go try to hear Louis Armstrong in his early years.
Every time I ask that, number 1 and 2, it's either Armstrong or it's Coltrane.
Interesting. Very interesting.
But
cool.
But
that's not a surprise, I guess.
Yeah, right. But the one answer from everybody, just a quick aside, that is always the same thing, is the love of jazz is always about freedom, which is always so comforting.
Yes, totally.
You know?
I mean, I think that's what attracted me to the music when I was 12, 13 years old, you know? I loved playing the piano. I loved creating my own music. At that time, I didn't love practicing Bach or Mozart or Beethoven or whatever. I do love practicing that music now. But at that time, you know, it was such an uphill struggle, and I wanted to play what I wanted to play. And that's what this music allows you to do.
So my final question is this. Everyone has their version or perception of you, your family, your friends, students, fans, but you're living your life. Who do you think you are?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I am a seeker. I'm searching for how to make my way in a world that is often bewildering and confusing. And along the way, I'm hoping to share as much love and light and good music with as many people as are receptive to it. I am a person who cares about my fellow human beings. I care about the natural world. I care about our country and our planet. I'm also deeply passionate about music and dedicated to trying to make the best music I can and hopefully also contribute something positive to my community.
That's a great answer. Hey, man, thank you for opening up about the new songs of resistance, about your life in music. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Joe. Thanks for having me and for supporting the music.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in Boston, New York City, Kansas City, and spots all over the globe, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Jason for his music, time, and cool. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.